How you doing, guys? Hopefully you've been well. Me personally, I've been sicker than a fucking boneless sack tap in Tony Hawk 2. But see, my love for the epic gamer lifestyle transcends my need for personal health and adequate rest, so the question lately has become, what can I actually play in this fevered state? I don't have the focus and mental sharpness for Hunt Showdown, the critical thought capacity for Disco Elysium, the emotional strength for another Lisa run. I need games that can give me a good experience while doing pretty much all the heavy lifting for me. Enter Vibey little horror games, or whatever the fuck the title says. Those ones that we would refer to largely as walking simulators, where you're expected to fawn over a virtual environment or story more so than traditional gameplay. If you've been around for a minute, you've probably heard me be critical of this style of horror game in the past. Not because they're never good, that's not the case at all, but because the quality control of the genre is fucking non-existent. So many of them are god-awful messes with ugly Unity assets chasing you down a hallway while you pick up poorly written notes and wait for the next janky scripted jump scare. What these games can so often forget is that their genre is all about the vibe. If your gameplay or story isn't going to win any awards, then you've got to nail a vibe. The guys bringing back low poly figured this out. Instant atmosphere. Look at this uncanny shit. It's still more than possible to screw this up. Not all of these are good either, but I get the trend and I'm all for it. So anyway, I'm hunting for some games where I don't really have to do shit, and I ended up getting through 4 in between fever dreams and NyQuil chugging sessions these past few days. Some I've played in the past, some that were brand new to me, some better than others, but spoiler alert, all of them not bad. None of these are ridiculously obscure, like I'm the 5th person to ever play them type shit, but they're not quite household titles either. Hopefully you see something new. This should make for some pretty quick rundowns as well. As I'm sure you've gathered, the games are brief and the atmosphere is pretty much everything, so I want to avoid giving everything away. Alright, let's go.
The windows of a house serve much the same purpose as eyes, and anyone who has ever rounded a bend or long drive and come suddenly face to face with a tall, dark manor will tell you that it is difficult to shake the impression that the house, through its lightless windows, is a creature capable of vision and intelligence.
Kitty Horseshow is an absolute poet. I've played a good bit of her library at this point, and Anatomy stands out as one of the most unique and powerful examples of body horror in media at large, without even putting the gore and grotesqueries on screen. It's one of those games that genuinely has the power to make you look over your shoulder when you're playing alone at night. You play as random asshole who stumbled into a dark house and started putting tapes into a tape player, as you would. Some spooky dialogue with some unreasonably good voice acting is then spouted to you as the house gets progressively more unorthodox. It's like the whole time you're just waiting for the monster under the bed to jump out and get you, but you've been in the belly of the beast the whole time. Please forgive the slightly dramatic analogy. Like I've said, at the time of this writing, my brain is fucking melting. Anatomy is just good indie horror down to its core. It's minimalist in its visuals, but not out of laziness or even necessity, as we can see from some of the developers' other, far more detailed projects. It's minimalism that actually seems to have been used for a good reason and feels like the best choice. If this looked like every other haunted horror house built in Unity that we've seen dozens of, the game would still be decent because the writing is some top shelf shit, but it wouldn't really elicit that same isolated feeling I get here. All in all, absolute banger that can be picked up for $2.99 plus any charitable donation you choose to make over on Itchy Gamer. September 1999 might be the most simplistic game on this list of intentionally simplistic games, so much so that one struggles to consider it a video game rather than a very polished, very edgy tech demo, but good goddamn if she isn't too pretty to ignore. You guys remember that Spider-Verse cartoon movie from a few years back? How every frame of that fucking movie looked like a beautiful painting? This kind of reminds me of that in a different direction. It is exactly 5 minutes and 30 seconds of looking at a messy boy's little house. At first, it kind of reminds me of my own apartment if I was way too into fucking birds. Seriously, what is with all the bird pictures? But then it gets sketchy real quick, and I mean quick like this game is only 5 minutes and 30 fucking seconds quick. The cuts from recording to recording do a great job making you feel this descent into depravity strongly and immediately, but on the whole it manages to be a pretty understated experience, given the subject matter. Oh yeah, and this one's free. You guys remember the Backrooms creepypasta? It was okay. Anyway, this one-man team over at Pie on a Plate Productions put together the Backrooms game Free Edition, which is, you guessed it, a free horror game about the Backrooms. Hey look, it's got some mechanics. Check your watch and think about your life every 30 seconds, and if you see the prey phantom vibing around the corner, fuck off out of there without making a scene. It's randomly generated, and a run could take anywhere from a few minutes to north of a half hour to find the exit. I think my first game was a little over 20 minutes before I committed suicide by monster because I didn't want to count seconds anymore. If you stumble onto the exit, you gotta play this little timing game where you're kicking out from a fucking pinfall to slow your breathing and peace out. I'm assuming if you mess it up a few times, the monster will come and eat you or whatever. I'm not sure because, I'm the best gamer on the planet. What this game undoubtedly excels in most is sound. My boy Pi knocked it out of the park. The droning hum of the panel lights, random knocks in the distance, the static around the corner, your own fat ass breathing. The sounds, almost on their own, make this game about walking through a yellow hallway and occasionally looking at your wrist really tense and atmospheric. Hear me out, Crytek, you guys are big on sound design. Give this guy a shot. Maybe he can make it so the footsteps right over my head don't sound like they're coming from the other side of the fucking swamp. Sorry. Backrooms is a solid solo dev creation for sure, and I bet you can get a half hour of fun from it. Concluse is definitely the longest and most involved title on the list today. I actually had to think kind of hard a few times. It got ugly. But ultimately it was worth it. Concluse has a ton of personality, and at a price point of 0 TAC 0, if you got 5 hours to kill, it'll give you a pretty unique experience for little investment. By unique, I mean super derivative of Silent Hill and containing a bunch of locations and motifs that are horror cliches at this point. But it pulls these tricks off with some serious style. The puzzles here are usually less about exercising your skull sponge and more about getting you to remember something obvious and move around the map and explore the way the game wants you to. That worked for me, because the world is eerie and uncomfortable and wonderful to poke around in. There might be one or two exceptions, depending on the amount of brain power you're working with at the time. I can think of one puzzle in this fucking sewer that almost gave me an aneurysm. But on the whole, the focus is on nailing a creepy vibe and not training you to be an engineer. Speaking of that creepy vibe, these guys nailed it with the interesting creative decision of making everything look like charred dog shit. Now, I'm no psychologist, nor am I an intellectual content creator, but if I had to offer my best guess as to why this works so well, I'd say it's all in our supple gamer imaginations. The uncomfortable but not overtly menacing world and creature designs, combined with the game's intentionally quiet atmosphere and avoidance of classic jump scares, lets us do the heavier lifting with our subconscious. Our brains tend to go to worse places than even the edgiest of game developers are willing to, and I haven't played many games that have stood back and exhibited the self-control needed to let this thrive, as well as Concluse. Sometimes it does get the tiniest bit silly, like they'll pan the camera to something that in most games would represent a jump scare, but they stick to their guns and they keep the volume low, don't create any real threat from it. I think I get the intention, and it's like, oh shit, my expectations are sure subverted right now, but to me it kind of felt like the game was being cute, usually to the detriment of the atmosphere they'd built. But again, all in all, great time. So there's our 4 games. Let's find the through lines for them. Firstly, we gotta commend sound design. All 4 of these sound amazing. Slapping on those fucking $30 turtle beaches is honestly gonna be a big boon to the experience here. Secondly, I think there's something to be said for the effectiveness of simply perverting the familiar. Whether a house, an apartment, an office space, or an entire small town, taking places we've all been and things we've all seen and saying, oh hey, these used to feel innocuous to you? Now your brain forever knows that they're evil. Classic trick. Also, I'd like to apologize for the delay getting this baby out. On top of genuine sickness, I was also held up by becoming briefly obsessed with Deathloop. Seriously, this game is dope. I can't imagine I'll ever make a video on it though, so I decided to shoehorn in my recommendation here, because I have zero fucking professionalism. As always, I genuinely appreciate your guys' time and your feedback. I'll talk to you later.